This is the weirdest focal length lens. It's 17 to 28, it doesn't have image stabilization, and it's all made of plastic. Kind of feels cheap, but the images that come out of this are straight fire. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Tamron 17 to 28 f2.8 lens. Now, on paper, there's a lot of things to actually hate about this lens. The whole thing is plastic, the focal length is 17 to 28, which is just weird in my opinion. The Sony 16 to 35 f4, which is a similar price, gets you a 16mm, which is a little bit wider, and it goes all the way up to 35mm, which is a little bit more zoomed in, and is a little bit more traditional that way. And this Tamron 17-28 doesn't have image stabilization like the 16 to 35mm has. But I still sold the 16 to 35mm and picked up this lens instead, and here's why. The fact that this lens has a constant f2.8 aperture is the biggest benefit to us. This means it lets more light into the camera's image sensor, which means it's better in low light. And it also gives you that shallower, blurry background depth of field so that it looks more expensive and more high-end. The Tamron and the Sony 16 to 35 are similar in their size, like similar this way, but the Tamron is a little bit lighter and a little bit more compact. This means that it's perfect for pairing with the Sony a7C, for example. We can use this lens on this camera that I'm filming on right now, and it gives you incredible image quality out of a really small setup. Like I said earlier, I sold my 16 to 35 f4, and it's not because I wasn't satisfied with the image quality. It's actually really sharp lens, and the quality that comes out of this camera is fantastic. But so does the Tamron. Now, I'm not gonna pull up a bunch of photos and pixel peep for you guys or anything like that, but just anecdotally, as a photographer and videographer that has used both, I would say that one isn't necessarily better than the other in terms of sharpness or in terms of pixel peeping. They both produce a really great image. Now, because this isn't a native Sony lens, one of the things that I'm always worried about is if the autofocus is any good. And I'm really impressed with the Tamron for being able to keep up with any Sony lenses that I've ever used. But to be honest, I really don't know if it's that surprising. I don't know if you guys know this, but Sony... Kona's scratching her cat post. Thank you. Shh, quiet on the set, please. Now, if you don't already know this, Sony actually has a significant ownership stake in Tamron, which gets them access to their mounts. So it's actually in Sony's best interest to enable Tamron to make good, affordable lenses, which brings me to my next point. Right now, you can find this lens on Amazon for exactly $1,213.50. Kind of a weird price, but let's just call it $1,200. That's Canadian. It's around $900 American, actually. Kona is still scratching on her post. I'm sorry for any noise. At around the same price, the Sony 16 to 35 f4 is great too, but it's an f4 and it's heavier. Now, the only other wide-angle lens that's available is the 16 to 35 G Master, a whopping $2,300 Canadian. That is stupid expensive. This is definitely a trade-off when it comes to this lens. There are no two ways about it. Look at this. Jesus, Kona, trying to film here. Do you want to come be in the video? There's just going to be a cat in the rest of the video. Sorry. I don't know. Ignore the cat. This is definitely a trade-off when it comes to this lens. There's no two ways about it. It's entirely made of plastic, but it's like a matte plastic, and it's like, you know, it's at least like a high-end plastic. If that makes any sense. But when you feel the G Master or even the 16 to 35 f4, it feels like a hefty quality lens. And this definitely does not. But let me ask you something. Does it actually even matter? For us, getting that f2.8 aperture is way more important than build quality. For the most part, I do like to baby my gear. Now, that's not just saying if it's misting outside or it's snowing, I'm not gonna go and take my camera out and use it. I definitely use my gear, but I definitely treat it very well. Now, accidents do happen, so if I drop this lens, I'm telling you, there's just as good a chance that if I drop another Sony lens, that there's gonna be just as much damage. The one thing that I do want to mention though is that this lens does actually have weather sealing. It's got this nice little gasket around it. So for a nice budget lens like this is really nice to have. I would actually say this is like the Toyota of lenses. It's not the prettiest, it's not the coolest, It's not the best looking, but it gets the job done. It gets you from A to B. It does what it needs to do. Now, I do want to actually address this focal length because yes, 17 to 28 is a really weird focal length. It's just kind of stubby. Would it be nice to have an f2.8 aperture from 16 to 35 rather than 17 to 28? Yes. But I'm not gonna pay another $1,100 on top of this price for that feature, especially when I can use that $1,100 and get the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 and shoot that entire focal range from 17 all the way up to 75. Well, now Kona's over here. I think she really wants some attention. Do you wanna be on camera? Say hi. Also, when you're in the space and you're trying to compare all the different lenses with this focal length, the Sony G Master has an f2.8 aperture. It's the most expensive. It's a great build, but no stabilization. The Sony 16 to 35 f4 is on the cheaper side, has that great build quality and stabilization, but it only has an f4 aperture. And the Tamron 17 to 28 has that f2.8 aperture, is on the cheaper side too, but the build quality is not so good and it has no image stabilization. So as you can see, no matter what lens you're looking for, there is always going to be a trade-off. But for us, we've basically been using this since it came out, so about a year ago, and we have zero complaints. And we actually do recommend this over every other lens available. That's why we have it. So just to sum everything up, the Tamron 17 to 28 is the most used lens in our camera bag, with the biggest benefits to us being that it's light, it's compact, it has that f2.8 aperture, and it's priced extremely well. But for the price, you do have to give up the fact that it doesn't have stabilization. You have to sacrifice some focal length and some build quality. But I can guarantee you that the photos and video that you can take at this focal range will be beautiful. So if you guys are looking to read up more about this, you want to research it, or you do want to purchase it, I will leave a link in the description below. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys liked this video. I hope you found it helpful. If it did any of those things for you, please hit that like button. It actually helps us out. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button so we can see you next week. Bye. Say bye, Kona. Say bye, Kona. Wait, where are you? Are you there? Bye, Kona. Say bye.